Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. Super excited to have you guys today. We'll give it just a few more seconds. I see some attendees piling in, so give everybody time to join the call from the waiting room. All right, looks like we're all caught up. All right, guys, welcome today to our webinar. We're super excited. It's our first webinar of 2026. We're excited to talk to you guys today about shipper and broker insurance. We have a packed agenda, so I'm going to get right into it. As a reminder, this is being recorded, so all of you attending or registered will definitely get the recording after this is complete. So you'll have all this information. But first, we're going to hand it over to our partners at Tint to talk to you about shipper insurance. We're going to have Medina, our product designer, actually show you what it looks like on Super Dispatch. And then we have a special guest, Mr. Mike Stevenson. He's an actual customer of Super Dispatch who's used the shipper insurance and can chat with us about what that experience has been like. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So feel free to send in your questions at the Q&A option, and we'll get to them when we're towards the end of the show. So without further ado, Andrew, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. Before I introduce myself more fully, I want everyone to kind of take a second and imagine a specific scenario. You're on the phone, right? On one line, you have your customer. They're upset. They have a new car that just got arrived with a massive scratch on it. On the other line, you have the carrier swearing on their life, right, that this was definitely their pickup, despite a blurry photo that you may already had to show there was no damage. In the middle, you got two different insurance adjusters playing a game of not in. And so if you ever felt like you needed to have a law degree or a crystal ball just to get a simple claim paid, you're in the right place today. We're here to kind of end that finger pointing, right? And we want to make sure that insurance is here to actually help your business and not tear it apart. And so, hey everyone, I'm Andrew. I lead our transportation and logistics division here at Tint, and we partner with Super Dispatch to bring shipper insurance that we call trusted transport. And so I'm excited to show you all how to move from being technically covered to being actually covered. In conversations I've had the last couple of months with different shippers, we hear one thing repeatedly. It's, hey, this is a great product, but where does it actually fit in? We vet our carriers, we make sure they have liability insurance. So why would I actually need this product? And I think it's a very fair question. And so to answer it, we have to really understand kind of traditional insurance and how it's built and look at the gaps between traditional insurance and what we've built here today with our shipper insurance product. And so if you look at the left side of this screen, traditional carrier or broker policies usually have super high deductibles, like often $2,500 or more. And on top of that, these policies are annual policies. And so you're paying for premiums, or the carriers are paying for premiums for things they don't always use. And so you're paying for this coverage, even if the truck isn't full, or if you don't care about a vehicle being covered. And not to mention that, it means that a lot of those minor damages and issues that are coming out of your own pockets, or you're negotiating with the carrier to pay them directly because the deductible is too high. And so a lot of those minor damages are coming out of your own pocket, like I said. And a lot of times also, you're dealing with a bottleneck of complexity. The damage itself may be super simple. It's a door ding, it's a scratch, right? But the layers of coverage and the number of parties involved can make that claim a nightmare. And so, not to mention a lot of you on this call, right? You are here to handle the shipment and not be claim experts. And so we don't expect you to be that person. And so you're oftentimes in this kind of he said, she said battle trying to prove liability. And so a lot of times that insurer that you're dealing with is looking for exclusions and you're just like wanting your claim paid, right? And so that insurance that you're used to dealing with is designed to really protect the carrier. And we wanted to work with Super Dispatch and build this product that have the shippers in mind, giving you all more ownership and more empowerment over actually what you want to be covered. And so that brings us to the right side of this slide, which is shipper insurance. So we designed this program with the shipper in mind, like I said, starting with a $100 flat deductible. And so in today's world, as you all know, almost any damage is going to be over $100. And so this ensures that virtually every claim that you have is actually covered. So you pay the first $100 and the coverage takes care of the rest. It's also a pay per load. And so gone are those days of these year-long policies for things that you aren't always using. You now can choose exactly which vehicles that you want to protect and which ones that you don't. It can be based on the value of the vehicle, the customer you have, or the distance that is being traveled. So it's very, very flexible for you. We're also, this is a huge thing, I think, we're settling claims in 7 days or less. And so we have an in-house claims team managing the claims for you, which means our internal review and estimating process happens very quickly once we have all the proper information that we need to evaluate claims. Go back to kind of the previous point that I said, right? A lot of you aren't claims experts, and this can be a big burden and slow down your business. We take care of that for you in-house. It's also a standalone policy and considered primary insurance. And so you don't have to wait on the carrier or their insurance company. We pay you first to get your business back moving again, and then we handle that subrogation or recovery process. So we go after the carrier or the responsible party, so you don't have to worry about all that headache. And then finally, we cover the modern risks. We'll go into more detail here on the next slide, but we aren't just looking for excuses to deny your claim. We're looking for ways to cover you for the things that are actually happening in the industry, like fraud, like theft, like mishandling. Those are very common things that we unfortunately see a lot of exclusions for today, but this policy has it written right in there. So I'm going to go to the next slide here and discuss kind of the specific coverages that we provide under this policy. And so our introduction is the first party coverage that you control. This is a shipper's interest policy that covers vehicles during those critical moments, the loading, the unloading, the transit, the temporary stops. All of those are covered, kind of that end-to-end transit, if you will. And as I mentioned earlier, we try to design this policy as a inclusive policy rather than exclusive one. And so when you think about what you want a policy to protect, this should be doing that, but I want to go into more details as to what we're actually protecting in this policy. And so on the left-hand side, under what's covered, you can see we covered transit damage. The things that keep you up at night, those standard scratches and door dents and random impacts that happen on the road, the type of thing that you're often paying out of pocket for because it's under deductible, or can just be a massive headache to deal with. We also deal with carrier errors. And so if they mishandle the vehicle or there's an accident during the loading or unloading process, we have coverage for that. And then there's those unfortunate acts of God, right? We all know that the weather out there can be unpredictable and it's undefeated with claims, unfortunately. So whether it's rain, wind, hail, dust, we include those unpredictable events. And this is a huge benefit with this policy because a lot of traditional liability policies can deny weather-related type activity because they're not liable for it, right? I also don't think that the next bullet can come at a better time, which is theft. We've seen a huge uptick in fraudulent behavior, phantom carriers that we're seeing across the industry. And so having the theft and fraud protection isn't really just a nice to have anymore, unfortunately. It's kind of vital to make sure that you're protected as the shipper out there. And then finally, we know that a loss can come with a lot of extra headaches. And so we've included the towing and storage for any kind of loss where the vehicle is not drivable or needs to be stored somewhere. So in the event of a covered loss, we'll cover the reasonable towing and up to 5 days of storage fees to make sure you aren't having to deal with that headache on top of resolving the situation with your customer. And so all of that to say, while it's not written on the slide, we do cover the most common types of vehicles. So going to be your typical car, truck, van, SUV, up to a value of $200,000. We do not currently include any kind of boat or motorcycle or RV or any vehicle over $200,000. That current threshold is where we feel most comfortable within our current appetite. And I want to kind of go into that in a little bit more detail. So there's some different possibilities you can have out there with supplemental or partial coverage. We do not today offer any kind of supplemental or partial coverage. And so let's, for example, say you have a vehicle valued at $300,000. You can't insure that first $200,000 with us. Or a similar example, but a little bit different. If you, let's say, have a $30,000 vehicle and you want to only have coverage for the first $10,000 of damages just to cover those kind of smaller things, we don't offer any kind of partial coverage like that at this time. Would love to hear any kind of feedback from folks. So if you're interested in some kind of product like that in the future. But with today's product that we're initially rolling out, right, we want it to be very simple kind of guidelines. And so if it's an under $200,000 eligible vehicle, we'll provide the full actual cash value, primary coverage for you, so you don't have to deal with all the carrier insurance at all. And then finally, at the bottom there, it says, what's not covered. These, I believe, are going to be exclusions that you would expect from a policy like this. So any kind of wear and tear, pre-existing conditions, mechanical, electrical breakdowns, and diminished value, those today are not covered. We also don't cover any kind of fraud or misrepresentation done by the shipper. And so if anyone out there is purchasing a policy and has some fraudulent behavior, we'll have to investigate that, obviously, and likely will not be covered. I don't expect that to be happen, no, but we'll make sure that we're saying that here. So that's kind of in a nutshell the overall policy itself. I'm going to have Medina now walk us through a demo on how you would add the tint policy in a few clicks, and then we'll have a chance at the end to answer any kind of questions that we may have not been able to cover in these couple of slides. So Medina, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, give me a second. Okay. Y'all can see my screen, right? Just want to make sure. Okay, thank you so much for this, Andrew. So, welcome to this little demo. I'm going to be showing you how you can buy insurance here on Super Dispatch. So first off, you need to make sure that your orders are either in accepted, new, or posted, meaning that if your order has been already picked up or delivered, you can buy coverage for it. So I'll go ahead into this order as a demonstration. So also you need to make sure that your pickup and delivery information is present as well as your vehicle details. And this will kind of, if all it is here, you will see this banner for insurance. So you can click add insurance. Give me a second. So it will direct you to Tint portal where you can see all of your vehicles here. For this demo, I just have one, but if you have a multiple, it will all populate here. If you want to familiarize yourself with the policy, you can click here. It will open up a PDF with all of the information necessary for you to get familiar with. So let's go ahead here. Let's say you're happy with this and you want to buy coverage. You will need to click on this check mark and then click on add coverage. Here you will be able to see the total. Since I already bought coverage from Tint, it remembers my credit card information, but if this is your first time, you'll just need to fill this all out. I'll go ahead and fill out all the other information for the demo. Oops. Okay, make sure you read all of these, acknowledge, and then you can purchase coverage. Just taking a while this time, a bit. Okay, hopefully it goes through. That's weird. Okay, there we go. So you can continue to your dashboard. So you can see now that you're covered. For this load, also these statuses, they sync up with the Super Dispatch, so it'll be whatever that status is in. So let's imagine some time has passed, you actually close the dashboard, you kind of lost sight of it. So now if you want to find all of the vehicles that you bought insurance for, you'll have this tab here saying insurance, and you have all of these orders. So now, as I mentioned, if your order has been is new or isn't posted or accepted, when you click manage insurance, you can cancel it if you need for some reason to cancel coverage. But once it's been picked up, you cannot cancel the coverage, but you can file a claim if necessary. So you'll have your list of vehicles here, all of the represented statuses, and then you click on these three dots, click file a claim, fill out this little form. Once you fill it out, submit it, then the Tint team will get back to you shortly. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Medina. All right, I'm excited to introduce you all to Mike Stevenson. He works at Evoke Autos, and he is an actual user of Super Dispatch, but obviously also purchasing insurance through the platform. So first off, Mike, I just want to give you a second to briefly introduce Evoke Autos and what your role is in the business.
Yeah, so I'm the owner here at Evoke Autos. Basically, obviously I'm using Super Dispatch to transport our vehicles that we purchase online and bring them back to the dealership. I was pretty excited when I saw the Tint product pop up in Super Dispatch one day, and I think I called the same day because I was obviously very interested in it based on some interactions with transport companies I had recently had. and it's been great to have. So.
Nice. What were you using before you started using this specific shipper insurance?
I guess you'd say nothing really other than our own standard insurance. We hadn't had any issues or claims yet at the time, but I was very concerned with all the issues that come with double brokering. And of course, if you're following any kind of industry news, that's become a massive problem. And I just thought my days are numbered, for that to happen to me, especially when I started paying attention to my carriers and who was actually dropping the cars and seeing that it was happening very frequently to me. And so I had not been a victim yet of that, but I knew my day was coming.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How was your experience with getting started and kind of what Medina just went through and signing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's just as easy as what she showed on there. It just takes a few extra minutes just to put that on there. Real simple, easy to use. They send you an email of receipts, which are nice also, so you've got access to it inside Super Dispatch or in your email.
Nice. You mentioned, paying attention to the carriers you use. Has using this affected your relationship with carriers in any way?
Yes. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I sleep better at night now because, before I was, as I started paying attention to it and realizing how much of an issue it was, I mean, I still, when it's very flagrantly obvious, I turn in anybody that's doing double brokering loads to Super Dispatch, but they've done a great job of following up on that stuff and taking it very seriously. I think Super Dispatch has done a great job compared to other players in the industry of kind of eliminating the riffraff, so to speak. And I think it's very obvious with the Super Dispatch product. That's probably why Tint, I'm sure, just an assumption, is on board because they know that Super Dispatch is handling their business also. But it's taking a lot of stress off my shoulders to have that extra coverage. Knowing that my car is covered now. This is not something that's going to fall back on our own dealer insurance, and makes it easier for me to deal with the carriers because honestly, I let them do their thing now. Extra protected.
Yeah. There you go. Were there any other coverages you were considering before starting with this one specifically, or is it just you heard about it on Super and you're like, I'm just going to try this one out?
Yeah, I didn't even know it existed. I was, getting to the point where I was nervous to even use, brokering sites to ship loads and stuff. And then lo and behold, the Tint popped up on Super Dispatch. Like I said, I reached out, found out what it all covered. And, after that, just, it was easy to use, obviously with the integration there on the Super Dispatch site.
How often are you purchasing policies for your loads?
I'm pretty much doing it probably 90 to 95% of all my loads. If there's a carrier that I have a really good relationship with, another, there's some local guys that obviously I have personal relationships with. I don't know why I wouldn't, but for some reason on some of those guys, I don't always put the insurance on it, but definitely, there's certain areas, like if I'm getting cars from Chicago, I don't know any of those guys. I already know I'm not going to know those guys. So definitely just putting the insurance on there just to help cover me and be more comfortable.
Yeah, awesome. Has there been a specific situation yet where maybe having the shipper insurance has made a real difference for you?
I think overall, it's made a big difference. Like I said, it is literally one less problem I have to worry about, knowing I have that extra coverage. So overall, yes, it's made a big difference in that department there. It's just literally just made my job easier, more comfortable because, it's my money on the line is the way I felt before, where now I feel like I've got a partner in it and it's not just me versus, transport company's insurance or my own dealer insurance.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. For everybody who's listening and watching, whether they're a dealership or a broker, what would you say to them if they're kind of wondering whether or not they should try this out?
It is very affordable. It's definitely something, if you don't, it's like any other type of insurance. If you don't have it when you need it, you wish you had it. It's as easy as it is to use and as inexpensive as it is really at the end of the day. To me, it's a pretty much no-brainer.
Awesome. That's super helpful. Andrew, Medina, or Matt, do any of you have any questions for Mike before I move on to the live Q&A?
No, I think it's just, Mike kind of mentioned that this is things about the theft and the fraudulent behavior. And like I mentioned in my kind of part, it's like a perfect time, right? Like it's a sad thing that we have to be comfortable with this or want need to have this product. But yeah, I think having that kind of peace of mind is, I really liked hearing that out of Mike for sure. So thanks, Mike.
Yep, agreed. All right, well, we have a few questions coming in. The first one I see is, are the members of the Super Dispatch claims team certified adjusters?
So they're actually not at Super Dispatch, the claims team. It's at Tint. And yes, we have all of our license. We're certified adjusters. And we work with another partner as well on the appraisal side. But yes, we have our own in-house claims appraisers or adjusters.
Great. Another one asking, did you say you'll provide the first 200K of a more valuable vehicle?
No, opposite, unfortunately. So $200,000 and less is going to be considered an eligible vehicle. If we have the valuation of the vehicle over $200,000, it actually won't even allow you to purchase the vehicle. And today, in our current structure, we don't have a way of doing some kind of like portion of the vehicle or partial coverage. And so you couldn't do like the first $200,000 on a $300,000 vehicle, up to $200,000 only. And then similar to that, let's say it is an eligible vehicle value. So let's say it's a $30,000 vehicle value, it's eligible. You couldn't just do a portion of that car either. And so it's going to be the full actual cash value of that vehicle that we're pulling in most often from the VIN. And so we're able to decode that VIN to come up with the valuation of that vehicle. It's also how the calculation of the premium is being done as well.
Great. Another question coming in here from Glenn. Do you work with the carrier insurance?
Yes. Yes. So we have an insurance carrier that we are kind of backed up by called RVI Guarantee. And so I believe, and if not, we can make sure it's available. We have a copy of the policy out there so people can view the policy in detail. I know for sure through Medina's kind of walkthrough within that trusted transport portal, there is a link to be able to view that policy. And so you'll be able to see all the details of that policy there. I don't know if Matt, if you had anything you want to add to that.
No, but I was intimately involved in the drafting of that policy, so I'm happy to answer any questions if people have questions about that.
Awesome.
Great. I see a few questions coming in, obviously about fraud, like you mentioned, and like Mike's mentioned as well. Like it's not just like a hot topic; it's very much so a serious reality in auto transport. One that's kind of like the gist of it is asking, so if there is a fraudulent carrier who moves a load for somebody and that car goes missing, does Tint insurance cover that cost, or what do they cover? How do you work with that specifically?
Yeah, so getting into claim specifics are a little bit tough sometimes, right? There's like so many different caveats and things that can happen in a situation, but the overall intent of the policy is to cover this kind of behavior. And so obviously in any kind of like theft, especially a more valuable vehicle, there's going to be an investigation that's being taken place by us. Our internal team of adjusters are going to do that. We'll work with Super Dispatch, we'll work with the carrier company, but we'll have a full investigation. But as I mentioned, the intention of this policy is that coverage for any kind of theft, carrier fraudulent behavior, the double brokering behavior, is that we'd be covering that.
Great. Can you add insurance to a load if you don't have the VIN?
Today, no. And so it'll force you to add that VIN. In a future world, we expect to be able to actually quote a vehicle without a VIN. Today, to even get a quote to go into Trusted Transport that Medina showed you, you have to actually have a VIN on file. If you go into Trusted Transport portal and you have a vehicle and that load doesn't have a VIN, there will be a way to add it right there. And as soon as you add that VIN in Super Dispatch, it'll then pop up that premium for you, that quote.
Great. Someone had a clarifying question around coverage. So on theft coverage specifically, they said if they ship a $160,000 Mercedes and it's stolen between pickup and drop off, they pay a $100 deductible and insurance covers the rest of the loss up to $200,000. Is that correct?
Up to the actual cash value of the vehicle is where it would come up to. And obviously, there's a ton of information in there. Like, yes, the high level premise of the policy, right, is to protect that up to the actual cash value or the declared value of that vehicle. But there would be an investigation that is taken place by our claims team.
Great. And how are values calculated?
Yeah, so we are taking the VIN and decoding that, and we're working with a company called VIN Audit. And so based on that VIN audit is how we are calculating the value of the vehicle at the premium standpoint. Now, that's to calculate premium, like I said. There also would be then if there was a total loss or a salvage vehicle, right? That would be done by our adjusters, and so they would work with the different kind of salvage companies and vehicle valuation companies to ensure that the actual cash value of the vehicle at the time of any kind of settlement is approved there. So kind of two different calculations, if you will, but making sure that we have an agreed upon settlement amount with the customer in the event of a claim.
Great. Is the $200,000, is that strictly per vehicle? Or, for example, if they have three vehicles on their truck, each is valued at around 100,000 per vehicle, would all three be insured under that?
Great question. It is per VIN is $200,000. I don't even mention it because we've never gotten close to the issue, but $1 million technically is the coverage per load. And so if you had five vehicles all valued at $200,000, you'd be okay. But if you had a sixth vehicle, right, then it wouldn't have the full amount of coverage if you want to buy the coverage for all of it. And this comes into the same kind of issue, right? We talk about gaps with liability insurance. Yeah, $100,000, $500,000 policy may sound good, but in the event of a total loss, right, that may not cover all the different vehicles on top of that policy. And so, yeah, hopefully I answered that question though.
Yeah, super helpful. Someone's asking if you can maybe clarify or better define what you mean by the misrepresentation of a shipper.
Yeah, so yeah, put on the spot to think of a question. Matt may have one on top of his head. If you are, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example quickly.
I think there's situations where you could misrepresent the value of the vehicle, right?
Yeah,
Like say that there are either components that were added to it or removed from it that were not actually the case, misrepresents or the circumstances of
yeah,
perhaps who the carrier was or when the vehicle was being picked up or where it's being transported to. Particularly if you change the delivery location partway through, but that actually was the intent, early on to not deliver at the original location. I think there's things like that are kind of what we're looking out for, in part because the misrepresentation often kind of goes hand in hand with some of the double brokering or fraud situations.
thanks, Matt.
Also, just a note, we do have people saying that they would definitely be interested in a gap or partial coverage. And that for some of them, that's really important to their business. So that's some great
Nice.
feedback to take on there. Is the insurance available to third-party transportation companies or only vehicle owners?
Is only available for shippers today. And so that can be a broker, it can be a dealer, right? We don't have anything for a third party like carrier today. We are working on a product in the future, but for this product specifically, it is designed for shippers and is very clearly outlined also in that policy if you want to check out that policy.
Great. We also have someone with a pretty specific case where they work with a lot of collector vehicles or vintage vehicles. So what they find is that the standard isn't on Blue Book values, or the VINs may not be available. So how would you handle cases similar to that?
Yeah, so for the situations, sometimes the VIN does bring back a value, sometimes it does not. And so if it is considered an eligible vehicle, which is probably a basic car, that kind of thing, right? It'll still then, in the kind of off case, but classic vehicles is going to happen, there's a place for you to declare the value. And so in that kind of portal Medina showed, where it shows you where the premiums are, it'll have the option sometimes to add a VIN, like I mentioned earlier, or to declare a value. And so that's where the customer, the shipper then can declare what that value would be for that vehicle. And it would calculate the premium based on that and also the distance being traveled. And if you have more
Great.
questions that you want to talk about one-on-one about classic vehicles, that kind of thing, feel free to reach out. We'll share a QR code here in like 1 second where you can always reach out to us and ask some more detailed questions there.
Cool. Well, we are at time, so why don't you go ahead and put up that QR code so that because people are asking how to reach out.
Yeah.
There's still so many questions we didn't get to, which is very exciting. So what I'm going to do, like I mentioned at the top of the webinar, is we're going to send out a recording of this that you will get by tomorrow. And with that, I'll take these questions and I'll work with the team on getting answers for you all. And I'll include a link where we're answering some of these questions within that email you'll receive in addition to the recording. We want to make sure all your questions are being looked at and considered. So nothing's going to go unanswered. It's just going to come through that email with the recording. In the meantime, have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for everybody attending. Thank you, Andrew, Medina, Matt, especially thank you, Mike, for taking time out of your very important day. We know moving cars, selling cars is a hustle. So we appreciate you so much for helping share your story and what it's like to work with Super Dispatch. So thank you to everybody else. We'll get that information to you as soon as we can. Have a good one,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.